Okay. Call to order this meeting of the Village of Ashcroft Council for Monday, June 8th, 2026. Mayor and Council wish to acknowledge the meeting today is held within the traditional territory of the Inkakaka people. Are there any additions to or deletions from the agenda?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay. We have the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on Monday, May 25th. Councillor Davenport?
The minutes of the regular meeting of council held May 25th be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Clement. Are there any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That's carried. We have no delegations this evening. Are there any questions from the public? Please. No, thank you. We have no bylaws policies to discuss today, so we move to item 6.1, staff report, renewing the Ashcroft-Bifka Sister City Relationship and Heritage Park mural. Councillor Clement.
I'd like to move that council direct the Enhancing Parks, Recreation, Arts and Culture Working Group to explore opportunities to strengthen and renew the Ashcroft-Bifka Sister City relationship, including options for replacement Heritage Park mural, opportunities for culture exchange and community engagement, and report back to council with recommendations.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Anstead. Any discussion on this? CEO Dick and then Councillor Anstead.
So this has been ongoing for quite some time. If you remember, it's been, I think it was in late 2024, 25, that we had some citizens reach out to us and in regards to their concern over the state of the mural. And we did have Joe Petty visit it, and I think she did consult with Royden. And they did determine, although it was salvageable, in the report back then, they said it could be repaired, but it probably wouldn't be worth the investment. It wouldn't last very long. Yeah. And out of that, I think the direction of council was to send a letter to Bifka inviting them to either come and join us, or perhaps give us send us a replacement image, because we wanted to continue to honor the artist that has now passed, and just kind of begin to move forward with that. And I think there was some literature that was sent back and forth, and something got missed somewhere, whether it ended up in a spam folder and didn't get answered. It was Mrs. Kenner who forwarded to me earlier this year saying, look, Bifka did reply with sample images that we could do. At that point in time, they didn't have any artists that were willing or able to come to help us with this. So it's really resurrecting a project, revisiting what can be done. Can we scale it down? Perhaps look at making it a little bit smaller and more manageable. The quality of materials to protect the paint has certainly improved a lot, and we've learned that through our mosaic restorations that Danielle and Marina have been doing, that they're a lot better UV protected. So perhaps if we were able to put a new image there, it would stand up for at least 25 years again, if not longer. Yeah, so, and I think also Mrs. Kenner was quite passionate about rekindling that relationship with, I think there's been a lot of the champions in Bifka that were there at the time that the sister city relationship was happening have passed on or are no longer in office. They're not part of the office anymore. So it's been a bit more challenging keeping in touch. We do our seasonal greetings back and forth, but not a lot of others. And I think she's really keen to re-engage that relationship. And she feels in her conversations with the folks in Bifka that they are as well. So it's just really taking that first step and seeing how we can go about re-establishing a stronger connection.
Councillor Anstead.
No, I just got an opportunity to meet with Mrs. Catamaru on the weekend, and she was really looking forward to this thing's progressing in that, and hopefully things taking shape and getting back to the relationship that they feel that we've had before, and that we just things over time and that have gone by the wayside and that, like Danielle was saying, with people leaving and whatnot. So it's just going to be good to see some further engagement on this and see what we can come up with.
Anyone else? All right, we do have a motion. All those in favor? None opposed? That's carried. Thank you. We move on to item 6.2. Well, we have several items for information. So 6.2, CAO report on the Royal Canadian Legion branch number, should actually be 113. 113, permissive tax exemption. I know this report is for information, but I would move that we write to the Legion asking them to submit an application in writing setting out what sort of exemption they are looking for. Thank you. Councillor Clement seconds that. Discussion? Okay, Councillor Tedford and then CFO Bala.
Have the Legion members being notified of the procedure and the timeline for changing our bylaw, for our bylaw having to be resubmitted for provincial input, etc.?
And no, my report always comes to council first, and then generally council says write a letter and give them all that information.
That's the question. Thank you.
CFO Bala?
Well, she just was going to say that it won't be for this year, it'll be for next year, so which is good because it's not coming to council right before elections.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Questions or comments? On the motion, all those in favor? None opposed? That's carried. 6.3, an update from CFO Bala on the water meter project. Is there going to be something behind us?
No, I'm not putting anything up.
Oh, did you just, so the report is here, you don't have anything else? Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments on CFO Bala's update? I just had a question. So approximately 125 accounts remain outstanding. Of those 125, the soft refusals have gone from 65 down to 42. And so what happens to, what about the other 80 odd?
The other 80 odd are either bit meters or large installations, intermediate or large installations. So they'll be moving to bit meter. Right now I'm in the process of pulling together all the data and going in the system and making a list. Is, it was executed fairly well, but there was, as things got updated, the flow of information needs to, before the next phase begins, I need to clarify. So I'm trying to get in between everything else lined up and who's left, who's soft refusal, who's kind of hard refusal. So during the next week, I'll kind of have a comprehensive thing. We meet the next set of managers tomorrow. So it'll be a new set of crew, a new manager bringing bit meters and bringing the larger installations and moving forward. So overall it went, compared to some other municipalities, we did have our challenges. They had a number of installers and a manager, and I think they handled them well. Some people had a large resistance to it. And as that list shrinks, we will get to a smaller list, hopefully. We will have to allocate some time, and that's the discussion of getting remaining inside meters set up. But at some point, who's left will have a letter, a registered letter, final thing. And if they still refuse, then it goes to, because we like to conclude this and move forward, right? And I have realized through this project that it is a longer process to get people to where you want them to go, and kind of the last step. And we're trying to work with people rather than putting penalties right away. I think we move as far as we can. We have a slot, another slot for people to book once all that's arranged, and that will be the final opportunity for people who are eligible to do that. And after that, there'll be a decision that can go for the remaining people. In that case, they might end up on beach and having to deal with that.
So if I'm reading this correctly, they have approximately 40 properties who set up a hard no to coming in and putting in.
Call it a soft no so far, so we'll try and work on them. And I mean, the realization that, you know, this is not an optional thing. Provide our commitments to the province and the feds for the water treatment plant from 2014 and go to it. With it, it has been a challenging project. I do get 2-3 calls a day at the minimum from different people. There have been some scheduling conflicts, but overall, these guys did a good job. And as you can notice from the report, there were no safety injuries. The data thing is working great. Installations were good for them. Some people were disappointed on how, and we're happy to go back and make things better if we can. That's never been an issue, but you know, so we try to do it the best.
Councilor Davenport?
The only feedback I had from citizens is that the installers weren't so much, they were knowledgeable in plumbing, but not necessarily in drywall situations. So
That's a good point, Councillor, because we're happy to go back, and if they're not happy, you know, work with them to get the drywall. They weren't knowledgeable in, I mean, weren't able to, they had wood. They did not a bad job on that one.
right. Okay.
Person didn't want to deal with us, I couldn't get, but we're happy to fix or, you know, get things done. And that's been my approach. You know, we're ready to work with you, you know, but yeah, it's been, they're not drywallers, they're focused on and certified to install. And, you know, sometimes they didn't do as good a job as we would have liked, but they're willing and happy to go back and do things. And where people, you know, there have been instances where people just got part of their house done, and now we were going back in, and I was happy to, you know, go back to the contractor and send us that particular invoice for fixing that area if you want. So we moved it. The idea is to get as much uptake as possible and be clear about what this is about and want to move forward with it. But I do, for council to anticipate a longer time span while maybe get a local plumber to deal with the last few, because I would not really want to ding people with $15,000 bill, because once it gets on their taxes, there's no way out of it, right? So it becomes pretty serious. So we're trying to work as much as possible so people avoid that aspect.
Councilor Davenport?
Just have a little more question about the older homes, and some of them aren't, as I understand, the pipes are so old that they're not possible to connect with what we have or what we're trying to do. I don't know, you just comment on that.
And Brian can add when he wants, but sometimes they have galvanized piping, or they have old piping which is in bad shape. In those cases, my blanket thing was we will move to pit meters because we don't inside. Because if you know, the pipe is fragile, you move one thing here, something down the line breaks, right? So in those cases, we will move into pit meters. So the number of pit meters, we started with a estimate working in the engine, it's over 100, it's nearing like 130, 140. It costs us a lot more, but I did ask for more money in the beginning to tide us over some of that, and that is a reality of our old town. So, you know, in terms of the province wanting some data about how the real life it is, I think we are a good test case. They're getting their work out with using us as a pilot project to get this done. So it's been a lot of work in make this work and trying to coordinate. The installer has left. We have some, you know, in the next managers coming in and start on it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, 6.4, CFO report verbal.
Verbal and presentation. It's the usual report I try to do on a regular basis, so you're informed of what's going on. Minimize as soon as this thing wakes up. Doing something. Okay, good. It split my screen, so. Which way? This way. Okay, so it's the financial update for nearly half the year's gone by. It's time is flying. So the things I want to talk about is this year's year-to-date financials, status of the statutory reports we have to do, and we haven't missed any deadlines so far. The economic outlook and what our investment thesis has been and how it's doing so far. Statutory reports audit went off well. That was fantastic. Nothing, and we got audit on top of the audit. The auditor got audited on our audit because they have their own professional controls. We've submitted the LDG financial and tax reports, which are significant reports from our end, which we submit every year. SOFI report is due, and I need to get it on your desk by June 22nd, which is kind of the repeat of the Section 168 report I did. Just you're aware of what it looks like, so the same thing. And LG cap is pending the month after. So those are my, and that's the carbon report and attestation. I can't say it today. Attestation outstanding. So just shifting gears, I'll get into the finances, but I wanted to talk about the economic outlook. Inflation is really starting to hit on everything, and as council and staff, we want to do the best for the village, but there's also the environment we're working in. We have to be conscious of what we're dealing with. Inflation starting to really hit. We are on a technical recession, but the job reports was good, which means basically implies the bank has greater leeway to raise rates. So I anticipate them holding steady for a little bit, but starting to raise rates as inflation flows through. We are in a better position than our neighbor down south, but what they do also affects us in terms of the craziness going on. Real estate is in a significant decline. If you've been keeping on top of the markets around, the major markets we are rural, so we're kind of our own little case. We react much slower. The major centers, Vancouver, Toronto, are starting to really see a very weak year and lose value. And not the least is that we kind of, analysts and everybody else seems to be sleepwalking towards a cliff with the oil inventory. There will come a time within the next month, by my estimation, where we'll actually see inventories run dry. And that's when the oil prices go through the roof. Now, one thing which has eased that is China has reduced their purchases by 40%, which came out of the blue. They built their reserve, they planned for it better, they're further down on the electrification journey. That's helping cushion, but the inventories are still depleting quite quickly. What particular day, I don't know, but I'd say mid-July, you're going to see a shock there. So you're going to see, my estimation, prices are below 195 range now. They're going to hit over 200 by that point. When everybody wakes up and says, there's no more oil, what do we do? So, it's not a certainty, but it's a very high probability now. So we'll have to, another crazy year to survive and try and keep our sense of things. So, and all the attended, I talked about it, fertilizer, hydrogen, and we're starting to see on the stock market side, it's starting to get retrained. So Friday, there was a $1.5 trillion loss in the Nasdaq. Today was a bit more stable, but this AI bubble is starting to look like it's going to go sideways. So to see what all happens all at once is yet to be seen. So what was our investment thesis? Basically, how we invested. We went ultra short term on the yield curve, 3 months or less, money market. So taking advantage of, so when the yield rises, we immediately take advantage of it, or in a month or so we start getting the higher rates. And we don't have a shock in terms of a capital loss. So we're in money market, in Canadian money market, and the rest is in bank. We get an interest rate, but to pay for our day-to-day expenses. In terms of bond behavior, again, I heard the same things I heard about 5-7 years ago, when people started chasing yields, and they went as long as they could. The problem is the bond duration, which is the length your bond portfolio is, has a direct bearing on how the cost. So the interest rate goes up, the prices of the bonds come down, and for every percentage point increase in the yield, it basically multiplies it by your duration. So if you have a 5-year duration, you lose 5% of your value in capital. So what happened, so I hope you can see these. These are the current yields. The short-term bond runs 3 to 5 year. Government focus ultra short-term bond 3 year. Money market is less than 3 months typically, a month treasury. So that's where we were, 2.5. So that's pretty much what our real return was. The mortgages can be usually 5+ years. And short-term bond again 3 to 5. So these guys all lost 3 to 5% of the value, offsetting any yield they would have had. Well, we sat there making our 2.5%. Just to be, that's why I was very keen to keep everything. And those who were in the balance fund, or are in the balance fund, and some municipalities are, actually quite a few are, when these various bubbles in the market, especially the AI bubble, bursts, that's going to be painful. Unfortunately, a lot of pension funds have also gotten into it, so it's kind of, and all the gains in the last year, if anybody has followed, have been concentrated in the tech sector, in the AI-driven stocks. So we are very susceptible to that now. And ChatGPT and Anthropic, the companies funding this, they are all going for their IPOs this year, like going public, and it's been billions, like more than anything ever spent in history on them. And to have a real return, like Logic has broken there, because if you look at the return on them, nobody has qualified that. So it's been like, you buy a subscription, it costs you $50, but it's costing on Silverline $5,000. So nobody's actually, so I think this is getting, at some point it'll come back to reality. AI is a transformative technology, but the actual cost, the return on investment, people are still more effective. And this is large language models. This is not general artificial computing. So I think it's been carried too far. So you'll see when it turns this year, it's going to be. So those IPOs might be the watershed moments where things start turning. So anyway, we are secure and doing this fairly well. So that's the overall background. Any questions about before I move into our specifics?
Thank you.
We'll move to our this one over. And so middle of the year, end of May, everything looks green. The areas where, and I'll try to make this bigger. So general overhead transfer, that goes to zero always. It's just an overhead transfer from one fund to the other. Just allocating costs. So insurance premiums, it's showing a negative 63, but that's just allocating the insurance. They only in one account across the, so I have to do accounting entries there. It'll be slightly negative, not 63. Insurance costs have gone up. Ice plant miscellaneous, that is, what did we do there? The compressor, thank you. I didn't know it's down. So that's the compressor going through. The budget will catch up because the budget is trended over 8 months, 4 in this year, 4 in the prior year, so it catches up. Right, so you've got 4 at the beginning of the year and 4 at the end of the year. GST paid, that's the money we get back, so it's not really negative. So I'm going down the thing, overhead transfer. So we're good overall, and that's the green showing you that we're overall good. And this negative is really resulting from the overhead. The other portfolios section of the folio which was negative was this. See, I've learned to make it bigger effectively. Historical burials, this is buying the columbarium, the first half of the payment. It should be in this account, but offsetting and trending there, so nothing to worry about there either. So general operating fund, we're good. I can look at the revenue side. Our taxes, really, it won't say much because the taxes aren't showing yet on there. But the tax went out really well. I had to work at it to get it accurate. Run it 5 times before it. It's a stressful time for me because once you print it, it's too late. So everything balanced. We had the homeowner grants appear as they should this year, which was my big concern. So all is well there, and we're moving ahead. In sewer operating fund, the only one which is looking negative is the connections, sewage connections, and that was for actually buying a cage, a tension cage, which decided it's a safety thing to surround the one, so we decided to incur that cost. The big upgrade project is slower than my anticipated budget because it's all in, but we've only had the 36. But our engineers are making progress. It is longer than we had hoped. Unfortunately, the tariffs haven't hit us negatively on that. Right now, I think these are getting taken over rather than this. But they are, I'm informed they're working on it and getting this start buying things. So sewer operating fund in good shape, water operating fund also in good shape. Looking at specifics here, connection and meters, some of our costs of looking and finding and digging for shut-offs and stuff has gone in here, and some of that will be picked. At the end of the year, I'll be going through it and then reallocating it. But overall, we're still doing well. The big positive here with the zero in actual expenses for the water, so-called water treatment, I had budgeted in hopes of getting the reservoir grant, so that's some of that money flowing through, but it isn't here yet. So hopefully it comes through, but there's a timing thing there. I'll retrend the budget if we are successful. Otherwise, there'll be a positive in the revenue and a negative and it balance out with the expense. So overall, everything together. Whoops, back to the report. What did I click? Everything together, we're good. So, any questions?
Questions or comments? Thank you very much. Like all the green. That's good to see. All right, thank you very much for that update. Fire smoke coordinators, again for information, we have an EOC stakeholder meeting report. Any questions or comments on that?
It was a really good day, or a couple, 3 hours. really good engagement, good conversation, and I think it built some connections and relationships. It was just the beginning of creating that resource core group. There's a few missing that were key players, but all of them just weren't able to make it, and they've been forwarded minutes or notes from the meeting, and they're keen to participate. I hope that we continue to do this annually or even biannually.
Great, thank you very much. All right, for action, we've got a little bit of sister city synergy going on here with the Read Japan Project 2026. Councilor Clement.
Can I move that we just provide this information to our library? That seems to be the proper place for it.
All right. Second by Councilor Davenport. Discussion? Councilor Tippett?
It seemed odd that they just reached out and picked the village as the target for this information. Is that a common theme?
You go ahead.
The consulate, Japanese consulate general from Vancouver came up and met with Mayor and myself. Was it in the fall? I think it was the fall.
November, December?
Was it that late? Yeah, so she came and met with us, and this is just a follow-up, trying to build relationships with communities that have Japanese history in them. And so they're just trying to establish a rapport, which is why we got this information sent to us.
And my question was derived really from looking at the stats of how many books they moved into what communities, and thought it was skewed oddly, so thank you.
Any questions or comments? On the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. All right, now we have a number of items for information. Do you have any questions or comments on items 7.2 through 7.9? All right, we'll move on to 8.1, Task Manager. Any questions or comments on the Task Manager? Councilor Clement?
I'm trying to see if it looks the same.
Councilor Clement?
You changed the font and I don't like it.
Did you change the font? I did not. Okay, change font back. Didn't know I changed the font. Sorry. We have trouble with that. I think it's time to create a new template. That one's just got hiccups.
It's also probably very hard to keep it landscape or portrait when you want to have
Right.
it landscape.
Yeah. All right, any items of new business? Reports from committees, we have natural built environment. Questions or comments on this? No. All right, we move on to council reports. So first I'm going to start off with, remember, Kamloops Cancer Supportive Care Center. Volunteers will be at the hub tomorrow morning starting at 10 a.m. for information about the Kamloops Supportive Cancer Care Center, which is available for anyone to go into in person. Their services are free, but they also offer quite a few of their services either through them or through other cancer care centers in BC, of which there are 3 others virtually. So people who cannot drive, cannot make it to Kamloops, have difficulties, time of year, a lot of these things can be accessed either over the phone, you can speak to a counselor there, or you can access some of their programs like exercise programs, etc. virtually. Volunteers will be at the hub tomorrow to talk about that. So that is awesome. Verbal TNRD out of town meeting. I got to drive a golf cart on the streets of Chase, and that was awesome. So our out of town meeting for the TNRD was in Chase and then Sun Peaks and points in between those 2 areas. So in Chase, we were able to see the Memorial Park and Pier. We were able to go visit Chase Library, which is awesome. We were able to go on golf carts. Chase and Parksville were 2 communities that were singled out to do pilots on golf carts, being allowed on the roads along with cars. Parksville eventually did not take part in the pilot. Chase did. And now you are able to, for the amount of $225, purchase a permit, which allows you to drive a golf cart on the streets of Chase. They are speed modified, no more than 30 kilometers an hour. The speed limits in Chase on most roads are 50. So it is considered good form to be checking your rear view mirrors. You do have to have them and pull off if you're starting to form a parade. They have to have brake lights, tail lights, etc. They cannot be used on the streets between, I think it's the 1st of November and the 15th of April-ish. They cannot go on the highway, but they can be used on all residential roads in Chase. About 50 people currently have the permits for $225 each, and I understand that only about $8,000. So, don't know. I mean, Chase is quite considerably more spread out than Ashcroft is. However, that might be something for council to tuck into the back of its mind as something to allow, possibly, as an alternative to the mobility cards.
I was at the racetrack this weekend up the hill. There was a gentleman, it already came up there. There was a gentleman there that was already trying to figure out how he was gonna get around a 2-stage governor so that he could make him do 80 if he wanted to, even though no one was around. So it was an interesting conversation.
So they also have in Chase the Pusme forest. It's a food forest. They are starting a composting pilot program where I think 5 households right now are involved in the pilot program. You put your compostable waste out, it's collected, and then they have a series of compost bins that everything is transferred along. And then the households that are part of the pilot project can use it for their gardens. Beautiful garden. So then we went to the Interfor Adams Lake Sawmill. I had never set foot in a sawmill in my life. It was amazing. It was really, really, really impressive. And people who obviously had been in sawmills, either because they worked in them or had occasion to go in them more than I had, were absolutely, what they were amazed by was the lack of people. That in old days there would have been 20 to 30 people in each of these areas. Now there were 2 who were basically supervising to make sure nothing went wrong. Absolutely amazing facility. I went to the Agate Bay Boat Launch, which the TNRD manages, which is a lovely little boat launch, public boat launch. In summertime, apparently it is so popular. I didn't understand why people from Barrie or Clearwater knew that back road down to Agate Bay so well. It's because that's how they come to get to Shuswap. They come down through that way. So in summertime, there's a lineup on weekends to go launch a boat. Then we went on to the Swan Bay Community Hall, or Swan Valley Community Hall, which is a schoolhouse that was built in 1917. And we had 2 very charming young ladies from the local 4-H club talk to us and give us an excellent presentation about the history of the valley and the building, which was just amazing. Kudos to the 4-H for their speaking, the speaking program they have where kids learn how to do public speaking, get that composure and that confidence, because these 2 were just awesome. Then we went to Sun Peaks, and I hadn't been there since Silga in 2017, so a lot of things that were a gleam in the eye of the late lamented Al Rain at the time are now there. Sadly, Al didn't live to see some of them, but his legacy will live on. Just a lovely little community. So yeah. So that was the out of town tour. We don't know where we're going next year. Well, I mean, if I'm there. We don't know where the plan is for next year. Ashcroft Cache Creek should be coming up in the rotation in a couple of years. And then the final thing I have is a notice of motion. So at this stage, the notice of motion is just that. I'm giving you notice of a motion. So we don't talk about it or discuss it or anything tonight, but I'll give it to you and I will just read it out for the record, and it will appear on the next agenda where we can discuss it. Writing anything where there's lots of whereases is kind of fun. Wherever the cats are. Let's kill a tree. So, notice of motion. Whereas the village of Ashcroft has numerous buildings and sites of historic interest, and whereas these buildings and properties are a source of pride for residents and of interest to both residents and visitors, And whereas there does not currently exist a register listing these buildings and sites and providing a comprehensive history of them, and whereas an online register could be developed and maintained at minimal cost with Ashcroft Museum staff and others as appropriate doing the necessary research and write-ups for designated buildings and sites, and whereas such a register would be for purposes of information and recognition only and would not impose restrictions on the owners of designated buildings and sites, therefore council directs staff to research what would be entailed in developing a heritage register for the village of Ashcroft, using the heritage registers of the Thompson-Nicola Regional District and the village of Clinton as examples, and report back to council on the feasibility of such a register. That's it for me. Councillor Ansel, you're next up alphabetically if you have a report, a verbal report. Okay. Councillor Clement.
I have nothing.
Councillor Davenport.
I do have a verbal report in regards to further to 10.1, the Natural Built Environment Committee. The Community Planning and Natural Built Environment Working Group met on May 25th to review the village's current vegetation management practices, including herbicide use and possible alternatives. Staff explained that herbicides are currently used to help reduce wildfire risk, maintain safety, protect infrastructure, and manage weeds throughout the community. The group discussed concerns raised by residents and agreed that clear communication and public education are important. Alternative methods were reviewed and members supported to continuing to research new ones. The discussion focused on balancing the environmental concerns and public feedback with the practical realities of maintaining public spaces and managing wildfire risk. And also, I might add, cost evaluation of all of that as well was really important. That was well brought up. Staff, thank you for CO Dick for such a really great information document. The working group also reviewed a draft information document and recommended adding information about the no spray list, resident responsibilities, notification practices, and opportunities for public feedback. As next steps, the group recommended a newsletter article to update residents on current practices and ongoing research. And I think that did that come out this week as well. Continued investigation of alternative methods, updates to informational and consideration of future public information meetings were also talked about as possibles.
Can you send that to me?
Councillor Davenport.
Would you send that to me tomorrow morning?
I sure can.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments on that? Councillor Taylor.
Your report, thank you.
All right, thank you. We have a resolution to adjourn to a closed meeting, so I will move the council adjourn to a closed meeting to discuss an item under the Community Charter, Section 90.1C, labor relations or other employee relations, and E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements. Councillor Clement seconds that. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. All right.